All right, Domonique Foxworth is here. He is a ESPN commentator. He is on a million shows, all of them good, including the Domonique Foxworth Show, one of my favorite podcasts in the world. Someone came up to me in the halls of Bristol yesterday and said, I loved you when Domonique was giving you guff for being in your neighbor's basement, which is a thing that is still happening sometimes. It's not today. My house is under renovation. Never do it. He is also a writer on the new Aaron Hernandez series that my mom texted me and said it was great. And she also texted me, and I don't understand this text. She said, I've never seen Urban Meyer portrayed dramatically. It's like, well, what, where would you have seen that? Anyway, she thought it was great. What's going on, Domonique?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for having me. I am determined not to give you any guff today. There'll be no guff zone.
There'll be some guff.
There'll be some guff.
There's going to be guff.
Guff free. I don't need the guff.
I bet you do. You can't live without guff.
Watch me.
No, there's going to be guff. There's going to be guff.
I can't. I promise you. I'm going to do my best.
Right.
How about
We're going to start here. With the Bryce Young benching, and then Andy Dalton has literally the best game of any quarterback this season. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, first quarterback to eclipse both those marks. Is there an element? So Jadeveon Clowney has his, I think, like best ever pressure game, and Robert Hunt, who I think is a Pro Bowl caliber guard, is pancaking people. Is there an element? I know every NFL player, because you want to put good stuff on tape, is always going to have some level of professionalism. But was there an element of hopelessness in Carolina where players were like, actually, like Joe Alt let Jadeveon Clowney have 0 pressures last week, and then Clowney has 8 pressures this week. Is there an element of hopelessness where like we can't do anything, and so I can't do anything?
Yeah. So I think there's a psychological impact on everything, and it's impossible to measure. You can't fake like scarcity. There's a book I read, I don't know, a long time ago. It's titled Scarcity.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I be reading, guys.
Yeah.
I was a little kid when I learned it, and I've managed to maintain that skill. But it was called. So you're the guff giver. I told you I'm trying my best, and you're the one that's out here guffing people.
We have a culture of guff competition here.
The book I read was just talking about how there is a difference in your mind when and we've all experienced it. And I think like when you have a test coming up or you have a paper due, if you can remember back to college, we're so old.
Cannot.
All of a sudden you have writer's block until that last night. And it's like there is some impact. And there are some people who like shrivel up during those moments of scarcity. So I think that there is some impact on. I tell a story sometimes about how there are lots of things that are different between me and I've played with a bunch of like Hall of Famers in my career. And I remember one specific incident where I was getting ready for a Thursday night game in Cleveland, I think it was. Maybe it's Sunday night. Anyway, it was a night game in Cleveland. And I remember being in the tunnel before we went out there and thinking, all right, let's go get this job done. Like I wasn't like mad that I had to work, but I wasn't extremely excited. I knew the Browns were terrible and we were going to beat them. And I was ready to go out there and do our job and go home. And then I look over and Ray Lewis is near tears, amped up in the tunnel. And I was like, all right, there's a difference. Like some of us can work ourselves up to like an emotional state. And this was like, I'm old, but this is Ray had already won 1 Super Bowl. He had already been the best linebacker in history for a stretch. Yeah. And he was just in there. And I think that could be true for most guys in the league are not like that. So I think most of the guys on the Panthers probably were invigorated by having this new quarterback, and it feels like a new lease on life, and probably had a little bit more effort, whether they want to admit it or not, than they normally do.
Is the Ray Lewis phenomenon, that effect, is that just like you're born with it? You just love football so much and you can't live without it?
I mean, I think it's probably like everything else is probably a combination of a lot of different things that bring you to this point to where he valued those games in a way, and he valued that experience in a way that I didn't. And I would say that that's why he's a Hall of Famer and I'm not, but there are probably another number of other reasons why he's a Hall of Famer and I'm not. I think one of them is definitely that he just had this control over his mindset that very few players had.
Well, also he was like an unbelievable athlete. It's kind of funny because you
Oh,
have
yeah.
to clear a bar in order for that to matter. Like if I was near tears before every football game in Orlando, I don't think it would have worked. I was like 195 pounds and 5'10", and I don't think any amount of tearing up would have helped against Edgewater High School and Dr. Phillips.
I don't remember when it was that I realized that a lot of the myths about hard work and perseverance, you can do everything you want if you put your mind to it. I don't remember how old I was, but I do remember it being like a real revelation. I remember thinking I worked out a bunch when I was like a little kid and just thought that it was going to give me an NFL. And so like I would then go to school and be better than everyone at sports. So I was like, oh, and I'm in elementary school. I'm like, oh, this is because I'm working hard. No, it's not because I did 100 crunches yesterday. It's because I just was born better than the rest of them at athleticism. And also I could read.
There you go. You can read scarcity. It's funny because during the Baby Gronk stuff a couple of years ago, there was a recruiting reporter who was talking about somebody was like, if you're good at 8 years old, just hypothetically, are you then good at 12 or whatever? And he said that he'd been talking about recruiting for 20 years. And he said 95% of it is the size of your parents. And he was like, if you're that young, if you're like in middle school, I just look, is the dad 6'5"? No, he's not. Okay. I'll see you in D3, pal. And like, it's even that level, where it's like, we don't even have that much control over it.
We've seen it get even more egregious with the professionalization of college sports. And I think with David Epstein, I had him on my show, and he was just talking. We were just talking about how many. I think it was near the NBA draft that just happened. Yeah. How many of those guys in the draft had college athlete parents? One, at least. Yeah. One or both of their parents were college athletes, and then there's so many professional athletes, and there's a combination of you get these particular athletic traits, and then you have access to information that other people don't have access to. You just have such a leg up. It's so rare that we see, because like me, neither of my parents played sports in college. Right. And I think there were a lot of people like me, but because sports has become such a big business, to me, it feels like that come up from nowhere, out of nowhere story. We been knew you could play.
Well, I knew you could play all the time
when you came out.
Well, even and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but but Miami took 8 kids from the same high school in 2007, and they were the number 1 recruiting class in the country. The 9th kid was Levante David, and we didn't take him. And now, and maybe it's some revisionist history, but now everybody was like, no, Levante was the guy. We all knew he was the guy. He just didn't have the grades, and so Miami didn't recruit him. But it's like they knew. They looked at Levante David. It wasn't like an underdog story. He ended up after JUCO going to Nebraska. It wasn't like it came from nowhere. They were looking at him saying, "This guy's going to the NFL." It was just a different scenario. So I once heard a broadcaster say this, and I've Googled it a million times trying to give their broadcaster credit. I haven't found it, but it's the best rule of thumb I've ever heard about this, which is that the guy said people come to him in airports and they say, hey, my son wants to go the professional route, pretty good in his high school. What track does he need to be on? What does he need to do? And the broadcaster said, X player. He goes, let me ask you a question. When your son plays, do the other parents in the league complain about him being able to play? And they go, no. And he goes, then he's got no shot.
Yeah, I've been for the last couple of years, I've been coaching flag football, and it's intense, more intense than I anticipate. And some of the parents get upset at me because I'm not as intense a coach as the rest of them. But often I want the kids to have a good time and enjoy the camaraderie of the sport. The boys, they're 11, 12-year-old boys. They want to win. They're intense or whatever. And I don't want to add to that because I'm like, hey, if your kid's good enough, how hard I push them today is not going to matter. Most of the kids probably aren't going to be good enough. So let's look. I want them to look back on this time and be like, hey, great friendships. We won some, we lost some, we had a great time, blah, 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 blah. And the same thing, if your kid's going to go to the pros, there's plenty of time for the to be stressful. It's going to be stressful. It don't have to be stressful in the 6th grade.
It does not have to be stressful in the 6th grade. That's exactly right. The Cowboys, to me, the media I'm the first media member to bring
Was it
up the
just
Cowboys.
talking about bad football is what made you want to come to the Cowboys?
Guys who can't play in the pros. I thought about it. I was like, oh man. Speaking of the guys who shouldn't be in the league, to me, it seems, and it seemed for a long time, like the Cowboys don't want to win the Super Bowl. And I think there's a broader conversation about how many teams actually won the Super Bowl, because I had been told probably 15 years ago now, when I was first starting covering the league, there was somebody in the league who was like, the dirty little secret is there's only a couple, like 10 teams trying to win the Super Bowl. Then Kyle Shanahan, sort of separate from this, goes on the Flying Coach podcast 3 or 4 years ago with Sean McVay and says that the answer is 6. It's about 6. And it changes every year. I think there's some teams who are trying to win the Super Bowl every year. But really, I mean, I think some guys look at the roster and they're like, all right, well, this, we don't have anybody in our offensive line. Let's punt on this year. And I've had GMs say that before. They say, all right, we can't ever tell the fan base, but this is not our year, guys. But because of the parity in the league, and sometimes you accidentally get to 10 wins and all that stuff, you kind of shut your mouth about it. Where I think other sports are more upfront about, hey, we're building towards 2026 kind of thing. Football, you would never say that. But let's focus on the Cowboys here. This roster's bad. They seem totally disjointed. And you look at like the defensive tackles, for instance, not even playoff caliber. And I'm curious, can you tell that the Cowboys do not prioritize winning at the highest level when you just look at how they operate, or do you think that is a false narrative?
I mean, I think people brought up their spending in the offseason as an example of it. The hard thing what makes it difficult to say anything too negative about the Cowboys is how well they've drafted. Mm-hmm. And that is somewhat luck and somewhat preparation, but it doesn't speak to them doing the best they can to win. I guess you could look at the coach hiring and the coach non-firing over the past few years to suggest that they aren't trying to maximize their chances of winning. I think there is like a priority stack in the decision making, and most of the time I don't think there's a conflict in the decisions that are being made, but I think the number one thing, it would appear to me, based on Jerry Jones's behavior and the behavior of the team, the number one thing is to be relevant, stay in the news, be interesting. They're programming a reality show, which part of programming a good reality show is being competitive and being good. But I do think particularly with the way that they've handled contract negotiations, it's like, how can we dominate the offseason conversation? What's going to be the best for our franchise?
The Real Housewives of Frisco.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And I think that the thing that will be best for them would be actually to win a Super Bowl. But you know what? It's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier just to be like, hey, our top of the league level quarterback, I don't know, maybe we're not going to pay you. Like, that's just nonsense. And then to have teammates and family members chiming in, it's just a culture of like circusness and being a great show. And Jerry Jones has nailed it. I guess he has enough Super Bowls. He just wants to go on Instagram Live talking about
Yep.
His with
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, just him and Jamie Foxx talking about the measurables.
It's funny because, first of all, if they wanted to change the way they operate, they would. Like, they've never, if they were unhappy with the way things were going, they would tell us. They've never told us. And I've said this before, but I think if the football gods came down and said, Jerry, you get a Super Bowl, but you have to stop talking, he would select talking every single time. And I just think that's the way. I think there's a million little edges, especially in modern football, about why you win. And the Cowboys have one of those things, which is that they draft really, really well, and then they do nothing else. They never hire the right coach. They don't negotiate contracts in a good way. They obviously don't attack free agency in a way that they should. I just think that they think, I mean, it's actually kind of funny. I'm probably over my skis here. They're almost the pro football version of Dabo Swinney, where they're just actually operating like 1998, and they're like, all right, we're going to recruit. And it's like, well, that's not really what you do anymore. You recruit, and then you add like 5 future NFL players in the portal. And Dabo's like, no, we're going to recruit. And that can work. I mean, Georgia only has a handful of portal guys, but like, it just feels like the Cowboys have just committed to this bit, and I don't think they're ever going to change. If they wanted to change, they would.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're committed to this bit, and they're definitely not going to change. Calling them Clemson, though, I think you've gone too far. They're not that far gone. Clemson, to me, at least, like
Clemson's okay.
No, they're
you
okay.
can beat
but
up
I guess,
on the ACC teams mostly.
Yeah, that's the point I would make.
But to Georgia by 31.
Yeah, Clemson's okay because Clemson exists in the ACC. I don't think we would have the same Clemson if they were in the SEC or the Big Ten.
Hey, would you have portaled?
Probably not. I mean, I guess so. I don't know. It's hard because like I was thinking probably not because I was thinking the reason why you portal is because you're not playing and like
right.
But
there's like
there's
like Jordan Addison's. There's only a hand. My thing on this is that my theory is that no NFL team has ever traded a player they wanted to keep. It's never happened. Right. And in the portal, there's actually very, very few players who go from national team to national team when the initial national team wants to keep them. It actually has happened very, very, very rarely. And there's some situations like Jordan Addison, best receiver in college, goes from Pittsburgh to USC. Pittsburgh to USC, I'm sorry to say, sorry to the Panthers, sorry to Louis Riddick, sorry to Tony Dorsett. USC is a step up. But I don't think that...
Not Dan Marino, just Tony Dorsett.
Not Dan Marino. I don't know why I thought Tony Dorsett. But it's
awesome. I like it.
The thing you're not seeing as much as I think people thought was like, unless there's a coaching change, obviously. Like Isaiah Bond going from Alabama to Texas, but that's a different deal. If the coaching staff is intact, there's very few guys who are like, I'm going to go from Georgia to Alabama, even though Georgia's desperate to keep me.
Aaron Donald, Darrelle Revis. Like, there's a lot of names you could have gone for. That doesn't qualify as guff, though. I think and there's a couple motivations. I think you move because you want to play more, you move because you want a bigger spotlight, or you move because you're going to get paid more money.
Right.
And the money stuff is something that it's hard for me to like gauge because the most important thing is getting to the NFL. And if I felt like I was on track to get to NFL, I doubt that I would have gone through the portal. So, I mean, I tend to say I probably wouldn't, but I don't know. If the money was right, I'd go hop on that thing. And I guess Maryland, we were good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we weren't Florida. We weren't Florida State.
You know where you learned you weren't Florida or Florida State is when you played Florida and Florida State, including in the 2001 Orange Bowl where Florida won 52-10, and then Florida State a couple times, including when I sat next to Mr. and Mrs. Foxworth in Tallahassee. Your breakout year.
Yeah. Well, we beat them my senior year. So
there you go. I was there. Yeah. It was in College Park,
right?
Right?
Too.
It was in College Park,
crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there.
That was nuts.
I was player of the
game. It was amazing.
You were player of the game? It wasn't like Bruce Perry? He may have been gone.
Nah, Bruce was gone by then.
Yeah, he was gone.
No, it was
Bruce just seems like
a
much better player than you. That's why I just shout him out.
He was last year we were both honorary captains at the same time, and he was.
Did you play in the Gator Bowl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, Pac-Man Jones. I that's where I discovered Pac-Man Jones. He was really good that game.
Yeah. Well, I think we beat him like 48-3 or something. Yeah. And we destroyed Tennessee in the Peach Bowl. So we learned. We got the little Orange Bowl was rough, but then we figured out our bowl experience and beat the dog out of some other teams.
Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words. Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. Hey, with the Sam Darnold stuff, and even the Andy Dalton stuff's a different bucket, but like, Justin Fields winning 3-0. I'm curious, like, I think oftentimes geography is destiny with quarterbacks. And just because you're failed doesn't mean you're a good quarterback. Like, that was my thing on Sam Darnold. Was like, I feel for you, Sam. You were put in some dog crap situations, but that doesn't actually mean you have talent. Looks like I was wrong because he's obviously thriving in Kevin O'Connell's offense. Would have been interesting to see him in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Curious if you think there's any lessons here about who should get a second chance. And whether that's Justin Fields or whomever, like I've heard non-quarterback that I've heard GM say, you know what, we just bet on traits. If you can do one thing well, we know what you can do over and over again if you're a pass rusher, and then we'll just try to teach you the rest if we're taking a flyer on a guy. From a quarterback standpoint, the lesson here from the first 3 weeks is what with some of these redemption stories?
Be patient and not just be patient with the player, but be patient before we call these full redemption stories. Well, I guess they are redeemed to some degree, but I think we can't expect players to be great every week. But I think what we saw from Baker Mayfield is like a pretty good example that we're probably going to see the same thing from Sam Darnold, and that's the best case scenario. Is right now Sam Darnold's he's living a charmed existence. His offensive line is protecting the hell out of him. The defense is giving him a short field and shutting down the opposing offense. They ran the ball well, and you got Justin Jefferson
running through double teams on a 97-yard touchdown.
Yes, and Kevin O'Connell is drawing up some pretty easy plays. So, like, it's not to take anything away from Sam Darnold because he's made some tight window throws. He's making the right decisions. He's doing well. But I think the league is largely made up of guys that can do that, that can manage in this great situation. The difference is when that defense gets scorched, because it's going to happen at some point, when the O-line breaks down and you don't have a running attack, Justin Jefferson's hammy gets tight, those are going to be the difference makers. And so that doesn't mean you can't be a franchise quarterback. There are plenty of franchise quarterbacks that don't have this like elevation level. So I think the great thing for Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield is I think they've proven, like, yeah, I could be a starter in this league. But after that, it's a different question.
Flip side, when do you give up on a quarterback? Just watching them. Because it was funny because Jeff Schwartz was on here over the summer and he was saying typically like nobody on the team saw Cam Newton and his rookie year coming in training camp. Because you don't see the full package in training camp of Cam Newton. You don't see the running game. You don't see running through contact. You don't see all that stuff. But he said there was a quarterback the year before who was a rookie. In my Googling, he didn't say it. In my Googling, it may have been Jimmy Clausen, where the moment he steps on the practice field, they go, oh, no. Like this is not going to work, and there's no second gear to Jimmy Clausen. That's just what this is. But I'm curious, like when you're watching, whether it's a Bryce Young and then all these young quarterbacks, is there a moment you say like, oh, the light is never going to come on for this quarterback?
I think it's in practice and 7-on-7. That's it. Is if you are in 7-on-7 and you are not playing well as a quarterback in 7-on-7 in the Skelly drill. So I've never had a starting quarterback where I was like, this just ain't gonna work. But like there've been backups and camp bodies where you get out there and it's like, oh no. And that's it's like, oh yeah, this ain't gonna work. And I mean, as far as actual in-game experience, the film doesn't lie. So if you put together a series of really awful bad throws and bad decisions and inaccuracy. And I think to the point that you were saying the scout said to you is like, what is the thing? Like if they don't have a thing, then you're in trouble.
Caleb Williams through 3 weeks has shown you what? Like I just the conversation is going to be so wonky because he got the crap knocked out of him in Houston. He does a lot of quick game on Sunday night. They still lose, or Sunday afternoon. They still lose. I think Nick Saban was 100% right. Expectations are the killer. Everybody expected him to come in and be really good immediately. And like, it's a different sport. And I've been talking about this in the show for a million years, but like the hash marks are different. You've never seen a disguised blitz worth anything in college. It's never happened. And so Caleb Williams is playing a different sport with a team. Apparently the offensive line is bad. The interior offensive line is bad. And all of the things we heard about how he had the best situation of a number one pick ever is either a lie or I've underrated every other or overrated every other number one pick situation. Because this is not as good as we thought. Caleb Williams through 3 weeks is what, Domonique?
Is not very good, but there are flashes, and that's the thing that I think is most encouraging about Caleb is that there's no reason to believe that the wild plays that we expected from him aren't going to come. Those are going to come, and the in structure stuff, if you can't protect it, then you gotta call Mike McDonald or Mike McDaniel or somebody to figure that out because we can't see. So like, I don't want to feel like I'm being a Caleb apologist, but I do feel like the on the run throws, he still has that ability. Mm-hmm. Hasn't been completely accurate, but we've seen that ability still there. We haven't seen him given the opportunity to function with plays consistently, with plays that are designed to his strength and the strength of the offensive line. So it does feel like a Shane Waldron issue. But Caleb, nothing's guaranteed. Like there's lots of really talented guys who never pan out. So that's the thing that I think is most important to remember. Even though there's these flashes that make me excited, it could still not work out.
Was there a guy in your career where you were up close and you were just like, how is this light? It doesn't have to be a quarterback, but like, how is this light never come on? Like this guy should be a Pro Bowler and he's just not turning that corner.
I don't know, me. I think Jay Cutler comes to mind, and not that he wasn't a Pro Bowler, but it was like geez, like you're so talented, and I think that's the thing for most quarterbacks, where you're like, or not most quarterbacks, a lot of quarterbacks that hang around the league longer, and Jay probably went to a Pro Bowl or two.
Yeah, he
like,
did.
He had top of the league arm talent, and he was a decent athlete at the beginning of his career, at least.
What was keeping Jay from top 5 status?
I think it was the league started to put a lot of value or understand how important it was not to turn the ball over, and Jay never quite accepted that, which is like, I think it's
you build your own reality, Domonique.
Right. So
as Steve Jobs calls it, a reality distortion field. If I want to throw interceptions, I'll just throw interceptions. It's fine.
He was so good, like the throws that he was able to make in practice as a rookie in Denver, and throws he made those in the games also. It never quite all came together for him, but you would see it, and that's why he got so many checks and so many opportunities. It's the old Jeff George experience.
We did some with Devin McCourty last week that I want to try to replicate with you, but I don't know how to phrase it, but you're my friend, so you'll just sit with me here for a second. I asked McCourty what the best thing Belichick ever taught him about football was. And he told this amazing story about how Belichick taught him wind patterns in the stadium before a particular game, leading to an interception on a go ball to Braylon Edwards in his rookie year. And just how the sidelines work and all this stuff. You cannot beat that because you weren't coached by Belichick. I want to do ball talk theater here, ball tip theater here. I'm workshopping the name. I'll get there by next week. Like, teach me something about football that you learned during your career, whether that was from Champ Bailey, whether that was from a DC, whether that was from Ed, whether that was from Ray Lewis, where you're just like, holy crap, I would have never thought about this in a million years.
That's a lot of pressure, and I gotta beat a win story. I can't.
You don't have to beat the win story. We don't have to beat the win story.
I'm a competitor. You can't tell me about that. I mean, I know what you're doing here. You told me about it because you knew then I'd be driven to think of something even better, and I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of some things that I learned from Terrell Suggs, but they're not football related. I'll tell you the stories later, and we can and you can tell me if it's better than the win story, but I will not say them on a microphone.
Did Ed, like, I was watching some of those clips, like, did Ed, he was so good at reading everything back there, Ed Reed, obviously. Did he tell the defense, did other members of the defense what was coming, or was it he was just a one-man band back there?
He was a one-man band most of the time, but he would tell us later. And it was, we started watching. So my first couple weeks with the Ravens didn't go as well as I would have wanted them to, because I didn't understand what the hell was happening. I thought we were playing defense. I thought we were playing the defense that was called. And it was not sometimes. And so we started watching film together as a team at my house towards the later parts of the week. And those were the opportunities when Ed would explain what he was seeing. And I'm not sure, I never actually talked to him about it. I'm not sure if he was thinking these things like consciously or subconsciously, but when we would watch together and we'd make him like explain to us what he's thinking, it would like crystallize everything for the rest of us. And understanding that he was kind of thinking for both sides was the big revelation that I guess that I was thinking of is I would watch film and try to find tips. All right, when they are in this formation or formations like this at this place on the field, this down and distance at this time of game, with this split, with this personnel, these are the 2-3 routes I can expect. And then I'd go out there with that information. The difference was Ed would do that, and then he would say, all right, this, I'm going to do this, which means they're going to think that, which means that I have to do the other thing. So it's like third and fourth level thinking where I'm thinking that I'm getting an advantage by figuring out what I want them to do, but I'm not taking into account that they also are trying to figure out what I think they think I'm going to do. So that was and that was the clip that's never going to die of Ed getting that interception on Peyton Manning and Bill Belichick talking about how it's the most amazing play you ever made. And it was a comeback from, I think, Reggie Wayne. He caught it. They ran to the line to run it again. And Ed and I knew that they just repeat the play. And this was from watching film the week earlier or that week coming up. And Ed was like, well, if they try to repeat a play, then you take it away. And they're going to know that you're going to take it away. And I'm going to intercept it. And so Ed was willing to risk. So we're in cover 1, I think. And so I sit on the comeback. And I'm like, either going to throw it to me or you're going to convert it. So I sat on it. They convert it to a go. Reggie throws his hand up. And Ed swoops over the top and intercepts the ball. And I was so excited because it worked. We did it against Aaron Rodgers. And I think Haruki Nakamura got the interception in that game. But what blew my mind I didn't know until we watched the film was Ed took 2 steps away from me. And in my mind, it was like, all right, I'm going to take this and he's going to cover me. He's just going to get right over top and cover me. He took 2 steps away because Peyton was reading him. And so Peyton looked to the other side and Ed was like, yeah, you fooled me. I'm going over here. And then spun back before Peyton turned back to throw. And he got it. So had he scored that touchdown, everybody would be like, hey, Domonique, the are you doing? Sitting on routes. It's like, but, and you know what I'm not going to do is say, but Ed told me. I'm like, my bad. But you don't have to worry about that because he covered it and got the pick.
A couple quick ones for you. Best team in the NFL right now that you've seen on tape?
I feel like it's I'm really obsessed with Brian Flores' defense right now. So it's either the Vikings or the Bills. The Bills' ability to eliminate the big play and their Josh Allen-ness on the other side is really impressive.
If you're a GM or a coach, would you hire Brian Flores as head coach next year?
Yeah, but I'm black.
If you were to wave, we asked this to Chris Long last year to great acclaim. If you were to wave a wand and the media could understand one thing about football you think they miss when you listen to talk radio or watch TV and you're like, okay, I just wish we could bridge this gap and the media could just understand blank, what would it be?
Coverages. Yeah, position specific. Even the guys doing the games, they've gotten better at it, but like they mess up the coverages and attribute errors to the man who's closest to this the situation, which like it's particularly frustrating for a cornerback, which like our jobs are hard enough. Don't start blaming us for other please.
Can you give me an example of like what is something you see all the time where you're just like, come on, like
it's a misunderstanding of cover 2 and who's responsible for what in cover 2 if you hit like one of those hole shots, and also like an appreciation for the nuances of the coverage. So there are situations where you're supposed to get a reroute as in a cover 2 corner, and sometimes you let the players get on the safety too quickly, and so it's not entirely the safety's fault. I think it's just how everything has to work together. It's not always clear, and I think That's probably I'm more sensitive for the defensive backfield, but it's probably pretty true for everything and everybody. Where it's like, all right, this guy threw an interception. He really sucks. Maybe there's something else attributing that fact. But yeah, that's the thing that drives me crazy because the job is so hard for the guys in the back end. You don't got to blame us for the extra stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the funny. We're in a screen grab culture where people are like, oh, look at this, and you also see this now with the open guys. It's like, oh, look at this guy in the back of the end zone. Well, maybe the play, like we've gotten a little bit lost in what the mission is as far as assigning blame. Everybody wants to assign blame. It's really hard to do it accurately.
Yeah, there's a window there to be filled in. I did on my show a couple weeks ago. After week 1, we did like a little dots video on Marvin Harrison Jr. And explained what happened week 1. And then he came out and I was like, yeah, he's good, guys. And then he came out the next week and had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. So I looked really smart.
The thing I said exactly. You are really smart. But the thing I said about Marvin Harrison is like the GPS data said he was like the slowest player in the history of sport or something. And it's like, all right, well, I know he's not. So like he's playing hesitantly and I'm sure it's going to be fine. Like I'm sure he was like a little bit hesitant and a little bit spooked by the speed of the game. And he was slow for 1 week and then he wasn't. Last thing for you, we call it Locker Room Legends. You cannot say Terrell Suggs because we need you to actually explain why here. Funniest person you ever played with in the NFL and why?
See, it's not going to be a big name.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Hamza Abdullah would crack me up all the time. He was a safety from Washington State that I played with for a while in Denver. Frank Walker was a cornerback in Baltimore, played a lot of special teams. That was really hilarious. Those guys come to mind as being pretty funny.
That Baltimore locker room seemed like one of the funniest places on earth. Like Terrell Suggs is yelling out movie quotes, but then also, like, I remember, I don't think you were playing in this game, when they beat the Patriots, and this is not funny exactly, when they beat the Patriots in the AFC title game, Suggs was walking down the hallway just screaming, like, starts at the top, classless organization, just like to the media. He wanted everybody to know how much he hated the Patriots, and it just felt like coming to work every day in those Ravens locker rooms would be extremely different from anything else you've ever been a part of.
There was a player, and we would play the command. Well, I guess they weren't the Commanders then, but the Washington football team every year in the preseason. And there was a player on the team that would walk around and yell all week that we had to get up because we're 45 minutes away and sometimes we'll be at the same places hanging out. And they'd be, please, this is not my words, so don't get upset, everyone. They would make sure we were up for that week because it was the battle for the we had to win these games because that's a good job not laughing. That is good concentration.
Staring straight ahead.
Because you can't go in the club after that and think that you win. So we had to win that battle. And that used to make me laugh. There was also a fight that was taking place at one point. It wasn't a fight. It was like they were like we would have these like during training camp, like if you catch the DBs catch a D lineman alone, you like jokingly play fight, jump them, and they would do the same thing to us. And so one of our guys got caught alone, and we just hear him yelling. So we start running in, and he took off all his clothes to make sure that they wouldn't fight, they wouldn't beat him up because that was a defense mechanism. You know what? They're not going to jump you in. So we just saw a circle of 6'3", 280-pound guys around this tiny butt-naked DB in the locker room. Is pretty hilarious.
I just need to end on this. So the battle for people in the club was over a preseason game?
Oh yeah. You know the Ravens they don't lose too many preseason games, man.
I know.
Oh yeah, you know the motivation now.
I think we may have hit on something that I didn't anticipate before. Domonique Foxworth, the Domonique Foxworth Show. Aaron Hernandez on Hulu. Thanks so much, buddy. FX and Hulu. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thank you.